We have a work session, and so there are some issues that we're going over in the work session, so I'm going to mention some of them now. And then we have Riley over here.
Hello, I'm Tom Riley.
Yes.
Jeff Conklin.
You guys want to speak a little bit now?
Sure, whenever you like.
That'd be great right now.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to work with the borough of Wyoming. We've been doing municipal engineering in Wyoming Valley for 90 years, starting with my grandfather. And we've worked for a number of towns in the area. And we have a lot of services to offer. We have specialists in stormwater, in roadways, in traffic engineering. We have landscape architects and park planners. And we have a grants and funding department, that works just on the funding process for projects. We have a total of about 70 people in 3 offices in Northeast Pennsylvania. And Jeff is our project manager, and Jeff has many years of experience, and he is a Wyoming resident and located just down the street. And he's our project manager. He's a senior project manager in our firm, and he's looking forward to working closely with council and your public works department. And what we'd like to do is as soon as available, meet with your manager and public works director and go over the list of things that you want to be pursued. We also have people in planning and zoning and plan reviews also for projects, private projects to review. And Jeff himself is a civil engineer and a stormwater specialist, and he will be the manager of different aspects, and be able to give you some really in-depth expertise on all of those stormwater things.
And I noticed he lives in the borough. That was very, very good. Very nice to see that a resident of Wyoming will be working with Wyoming. And so we're very happy to have you guys come along with us. That'd be great. We look forward to it, and we do appreciate it. Okay, there's a number of things that we're going to discuss. The council plans to give a donation to the West Wyoming Little League, West Wyoming Little League, a $500 donation to the Wyoming Free Library. There's a request to close Wyoming Avenue on September 6th for a race. Let's see. There's also, we have to make motions for Municipal Pay Link to accept credit card payments for your sanitation bills. So, if I'm not mistaken, Roseanne, people could pay with credit card now for sanitation.
Not yet.
Oh, not yet. All right.
We're looking into
Looking
it.
into it.
It's free for us to do.
Okay.
What happens is the customer takes the fee, 2% or 3%, depending upon the amount. I didn't make the appointment yet with the Municipal Pay. I wanted to make sure that you were okay with getting the link put on there. But a lot of people do ask, when they come in, if they accept credit cards, and they can do it right from their home. They don't even have to come in, so it may cause a lot of maybe less delinquencies by us doing this.
Thank you. Moving on along here, there's going to be 2 part-time police officer appointments. Scott Threadaway, John Bell, requested by Officer Chief Merkovich. Another issue we have between Wyoming Borough and Exeter Borough, the calibration services of our speed traps. And we have a 50-cent pay raise for the DPW workers. And we have Jimmy Tragan had asked to carry 7 vacation days over because he wasn't able to use them. We have a issue with attorney-client privilege pertaining to documents provided by the Office of the Attorney General as a part of an active investigation involving matters with Wyoming Borough. This investigation is ongoing. It's been going on for at least 2-3 years now, and so that's another That's it. Any questions? We have a couple of issues, sewer issues in the borough. We have a resident that has issues with their sewage, raw sewage coming into their basement. So basically what the letter states is that they want council to make a decision on whether they have to be charged to tap in for a new lateral. Just myself, if you are on the sewer system and you've been on there for quite some time and there's a problem with your line, my opinion is we don't charge them for a sewer lateral because they're already paying a sewer fee, they're already paying the WVSA. That's just my opinion. So I recommend that the borough just waives any kind of fee if it is not a new construction. If it's a new construction, it's a different story, of course. So.
The only thing I would like to mention is, prior to the meeting, I was given a letter from the host company number 1, and they would like to, us to reach out to explore all grants and fundings for number 1 to begin replacing their engine for number 1. So I'd like to make a motion later on this evening to have Chris Cawley from Ashburn and Associates to look at all avenues to explore some grants and funding for host company number 1, if that's okay with everybody else. That's it. That's all I have.
The council is asking to look into the zoning ordinance to try to take the zoning back from Luzerne County. And so there are a number of steps that we have to take that our solicitor, Laura Dennis, would have to go through. And so is there any discussion on that zoning? We were thinking about taking back zoning.
Who does it now, Mr. Chairman, the county?
Yes, the county does, Luzerne County. They've been doing it for at least 5 years.
What do they include? What does that include? What do they cover?
Anytime somebody builds or occupancy permits or permits of just not building permits, because Pittston City does our building permits. But any kind of, oh, say like, you wanna put an addition on and, you know, you're near a floodplain, and, they have to give you approval. Or, if you're, you know, within 10 feet from your neighbor, they have to you know, have to give you approval for that as well.
Just the same services that the zoning, when we had it, took over, did the same thing, correct?
Yes, basically they did the same thing.
And why is the reason why that we have the county take over? Not us, whoever did.
I don't know why they did that.
I personally think it's better in the hands of, the borough and council. They would have more of a stake in the claim than county. A lot of the local municipalities typically do their own.
There's very few that have separated.
Yeah. So I think it could definitely help the borough. I think dealing with the county, from what developers tell me, can be a real pain. And I think it limits people wanting to do things in the borough. So I think it would be better to go back to the way where it was, where you have your own zoning board. It's the residents of the borough that are on that zoning board, and they're the ones that would help make the decisions on if something was gonna come into town or not come into town.
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense if you have somebody from Wyoming Borough to be familiar with the properties rather than somebody that's not familiar.
And it also helps with cost. It lowers the cost where there's not three different hands taking in checks from this guy to that guy to that guy. So if we handle it in-house, it could save us maybe a little bit of money too, so.
Anybody on council have any thoughts against it or no? So I guess we need a motion made for you to look into the steps to bring back, because I know we do have an agreement signed with the county that I think requires a year notice, but I believe that they've waived that in the past for other boroughs that wanted to opt out, so maybe it's something that we could reach out to the county and.
Yeah, we could do a motion to have it looked into, so that there could be at least a presentation as to how we would get it back, and we need a separate motion to dissolve the contract with the county.
Okay.
Not tonight, but at a later time. And another thing is, it would be more, community involvement with the zoning, because you have a zoning board, a separate zoning board, that would be appointed from some community members. So they would be the ones hearing any issues that would come up, with someone challenging, or even just to get a variance, but you'd be able to have members of Wyoming Borough making those decisions. Usually it's like a three-panel board, and then a solicitor. The solicitor would not be me, it would be a different lawyer, and it would be someone, just to give them the advice on what the options are of the law. For example, if someone wanted a variance, a change in anything, if you're putting a swimming pool in and it's too close to the neighbor. So those are issues that you'd be able to handle right here.
I believe you were on it,
I
right?
was a zoning officer years ago. We didn't per se have a zoning solicitor. We had an advisor who helped us along. I cannot remember his name right off the top of my head right now. But I don't know that we need a solicitor for that. Rather, the zoning board handles variances, and a variance is just that. It goes against what is in the zoning ordinance. And in other words, to have a variance, you've got to spend $250. You have to have a hearing, and the zoning board makes a decision. That's the reason for the board, and normally because it goes against what's in zoning rules. And you would also need a zoning officer, whose responsibility would be obviously to issue permits, issue contractors' licenses. The reason for contractors' licenses is basically to make sure that the people coming in doing the work are bonded and have legitimate insurance. You don't want a bunch of fly-by-nighters coming in, et cetera. The people may initially say, well, jeepers, that's gonna be tacked onto my bill. Yes, it is. But what happens is, once you get a contractor's license, it's good for the year. If you realize what I'm saying, anybody doing work in Wyoming has to have a license to do work in Wyoming. The only way they get the license is if they permit or if they submit that they've got insurance and they're bonded.
I think that we're talking about two different issues though.
Yes.
One one is licensing contractors, and we're just talking about setting up zoning.
Right.
So licensing contractor, you can do whenever you want to do that.
I'm sorry.
Contractor's license is different from zoning, that's totally different. As far as you needed the license and insurance, all that stuff, zoning is just almost like placement of what you're gonna put where. Usually every borough that has ever been, it's two separate things. It's contractor's license as far as building permits, inspections, all that stuff, where zoning is totally separate. So as far as that kind
It's
of,
not separate.
yeah, it is.
I was a zoning officer, I know it's not
I
separate.
do this for a living,
I did too for a long time,
okay, all right,
and I have the zoning book. No, it's not separate.
okay.
I mean, how do you, no,
I pay different checks for everything. I pay different,
How do you figure it's separate? If you're going to do a project in Wyoming that is going to be on the ground and change, percentage of land available and what's on structures, why
because
is it
zoning
separate?
is just zoning, that's how every borough is. I pay a check for zoning, if I'm gonna build a house, I have to do a zoning permit.
Right.
Only, have nothing to do with the building permit. And then building permit is totally separate.
The only way you can get a zoning permit though is if you're putting up a property or putting up a structure that falls within the requirements.
Correct.
In the zoning code,
Correct, that's it,
and
zoning.
that comes from the zoning officer.
Right, that's it, zoning. Just shows you where you can put it and how far from the property lines, and that's it.
And what are we discussing then? I don't know.
That's what he's talking about, bringing the zoning back, not the building permits and that kind of thing. Where where someone would come in and has to get a building permit if they were gonna put an addition in. All the zoning would do is tell you if you could put it there, yes or no. So you have to have the proper setbacks, and then if it was too close to a property line, then that's when a variance, the zoning board would come in, where a variance would have to be put into effect, where you'd have to have a hearing, come in, make sure that if you're gonna put it 1 foot from your property line instead of 8, as usually the required 8 to 10 feet.
But other than that, it goes into whether you're in a floodplain, or whether you're in a flood zone, or whether you're in an R2 with.
Well, that's all part of that.
That's all in zoning.
Yes, that's
in
all part of
zoning
that.
ordinance.
That's different from building permits. That's different.
The only way you can get is by building permit is if you follow the qualifications that are in. in
Correct.
the
They
zoning
go hand in
ordinance.
hand every time.
All right.
Well, I'll tell you,
All right.
in the past, we had a zoning officer that did building permits too. Maybe that's why, there's a little bit of discrepancy, but zoning and building permits are separate. And so, but in the past, Larry Zelinski, which did a great job for the Wyoming Borough, he did both. And so like a lot of times, you wouldn't even know the difference. But thanks for that.
Got another thing too, Mr. Chairman, before we get into the regular meeting. Mayor, we have, how many part-time policemen do we have right now? Chief?
Right now?
Yes.
What do we have on the list that actually?
work?
Yeah.
Well, that's why we hired them, I hope.
Well,
You're missing the point.
Yeah, I know.
there's about 12 of us. Top of my head,
How many actually work?
maybe 8. I'd say there's 4 right now.
How about, are any of these officers in here tonight?
One, Mr. Trevor.
And John Bell, is he still chief in Ashley?
No, he's left it a long time ago.
They're here tonight to ask for you guys to vote on bringing them in.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I understand that part, Joey, but
Bell works for us, Wyoming now, and main source.
he was a chief there, right?
He was chief.
Years?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Because I spoke with the mayor and with Chief Martin, and she's very aware of the thing. There's been a lot of complaints with speeding violations, which Chris's hands have been tied because mayor, money-wise, we're putting extra people on. But the speeding, stop signs, they're right on top of what they can do. And some money will be freed up maybe, right, Chris, next month when his full-time.
A lot of money for you.
And the mayor's heard the same complaints as I've done, and Chris probably heard them 10 times. And a lot of people, when I got up here, when I told people when I run, a lot of people will not go to the meetings. They will not speak at a podium, they're afraid, but I told them I'll field their questions, their complaints. It's not picking on anybody, but I know where the situation, financial situation is with the borough. So I know in the near future, the traffic violations are probably gonna be curtailed a little bit here in the town.
Yeah, so since Chief Merck came in, we are obviously focused on traffic as well as other
Yes.
investigations and stuff in the borough, but we do have a full-time officer that is going to be leaving the department to move to another state. That salary that was budgeted in our police department is gonna allow us to bring in part-time officers, and we're gonna be able to run a little bit more traffic and to help enforce the speed and stop time violations and be able to have some more split shifts that we're sort of limited on because of the financial state that the borough is in. So,
Yeah, I understand that. Mayor explained, well, I knew that too. And the mayor got several complaints, which he knows, and the chief knows, a lot of complaints, even with school bus drivers. I don't know if anybody paid attention to them recently, they're horrible. I don't know, any bus drivers in here? School bus drivers?
yeah,
I mean, I've unintentionally followed school buses just by going on the routes, and maybe 13 stop signs in a row. 2 or 3 of them just follow each other and go right. They don't roll through, they go through.
Yeah, I actually was picking up my daughter the one day, and she goes to 10th Street, and they were flying out of the parking lot, making like they banked that U-turn to come down towards Susquehanna. And I called Chief Merck. He had already spoken with the school. I then called Officer Alvarigi, who's the Wyoming Area Schools police, and he then called the PACE Transportation and made them aware of the issue, and they were going to be looking into it. So, yeah, we do get complaints on that quite often, and they need to slow down. We have a plan in place for that as well, so.
I should put myself in
Yeah.
I call that means,
Right, yes.
I think we've all been witness to that one.
Oh, yeah.
It's 7:30, so we are going to get into our regular scheduled meeting. Let us stand and face the flag for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Beloga?
Present.
Mr. Sculp?
Here?
Mr. Lipsky?
Present.
Mr. Borzell?
Here.
Mr. Herron? Mr. Smiles? Present. Mayor Dominic? No, I'm sorry, no, Attorney Dennis, I'm sorry, and Mayor Dominic.
The approval of minutes. The minutes of the December 2019 meeting are available for review at the Borough office. The minutes are approved on a motion made by, the motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Borzell, second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Scults, all in favor say yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Any noes? Motion passes. Officer reports. Reports for the Police Department, Street Commissioner, and Code Enforcement Officer for the month of December 2019 have been submitted and placed on file for public inspection. Reports and committees, administration, and grants.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Motion will be needed to approve a donation of $500 to the Wyoming, West Wyoming Little League. Donation is listed in the 2020 approved budget. Motion will be needed to approve a donation of $500 to the Wyoming Free Library. And a motion needed to approve the request from Ben Robinson to close Wyoming out for 1 hour on September 6th for a race that will run from Pittston to Wilkes-Barre. Ben Robinson has already received permission from PennDOT for this race. Also, a motion will be needed to approve the link for Municipay on the borough's website to allow residents to pay their sanitation bills with a credit card. This is a free service for the borough. Also, I'd like to add one more thing that we'd like to thank Mr. Beloga and the Wyoming Borough. Mr. Beloga and the Wyoming Borough Council would like to thank the Bible Reformed Presbyterian Church for the generous donation for the sound system for the Wyoming Borough monthly meetings. And that's in the report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Emergency Service, Police, and Fire Departments. Mr. Skulls.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A motion will be needed to approve the hiring of 2 part-time officers, Scott Trethewey and John Bell, per the request of Chief Markovich. And also a motion will be needed to approve the resolution for calibration between Wyoming Borough and Exeter Borough for the calibration of speed monitoring of enforcement equipment with YWSI coding. This will reduce the cost to the borough by 50%. That's in my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Health and Sanitation, Recycling and Solid Waste, Mr. Borzell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's no report as of tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Borzell. Personnel, Diane Smiles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A motion will be needed to approve a 50-cent pay raise for the Department of Public Works employees James Tregan, Sean Kidd, and John Schultz to be effective on the first pay for January 2020. Also, a motion will be needed to approve DPW employee Jim Tregan to carry over 7 vacation days from 2019 to 2020. Due to the staffing issues, Jim was unable to use these vacation days in 2019. That is the end of my report.
Thank you. Public Property, Borough Building and Recreation, Mrs. Smiles.
Thanks again, Mr. Chairman. There is no report at this time.
Thank you. Streets and Sewers, Public Works, Mr. Herron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. And Zoning and Planning, Mr. Lipsky.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, nothing to report other than what we have discussed, that we are going to be looking into taking zoning out of the county and bringing it back into Wyoming. Other than that, that's the end of my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lipsky. Now we go to the Solicitor's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we need a motion, will be needed to waive the attorney-client privilege as it may exist pertaining only to documents that have been provided to the Office of the Attorney General as part of an active investigation involving matters with Wyoming Borough. That's all for tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor's Report, Mr. Dominic.
The police department responded to 127 incidents this month, and for the year of 19, criminal arrests for 2019 was 48, non-traffic citations was 91, traffic citations was 65, and there were a total of 85 warnings in 2019. For a total calls of service for the year of 2019 was just under 3,000. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The floor is open to the public, and so we're going to call Florence Aquilina.
I need a microphone now. There's not. I'm concerned about this garbage. Last year I got a whole list, if all of you remember, of all the municipalities that are through the valley here, and everybody give me a price of what it costs. And I remember Mr. Mayor, he told me that he was gonna look into if a company that reduce the price. You know, special the senior citizens, not me alone, all the senior citizens. Like I said, I have a little shopping bag of garbage every week. Gonna take a picture and bring it over here, every week. Now, $240, that's a little bit steep. In Mosul, they pay $50 for the year, including their tax. Now, I have a list that goes on here, what's the beach, the Wyoming, Exeter, Loftusville, Plains, Laughlin, Juliet. I have a Pringle, Kingston, I have a bunch there, Edwardsville, Houston. And then nothing like in Wyoming. The only one at the time of last year was Laughlin, because it's a little borough, so the trucks, they have to have an extra $1 to go and pick it up in the garage. Now, I would like to see that be reduced, please. It's
So-
getting ridiculous.
So the problem is, we reached out and we sent out an RFP, so a request for proposal to as many garbage companies as we can possibly think of. And we got two responses. So only 2 companies wanted to do business with our borough. So our hands are sort of tied, we went with the cheapest one.